Hello and welcome to the first episode of Season 2 of Unlimited Opinions. I'm Adam Bishop.
I'm Mark Bishop.
And this time we're switching up our topics a little bit. The first season was all about philosophy, so you can listen to all 41 episodes. That was a lot of episodes for Season 1. All 41 episodes we covered the history of Western philosophy, but now we're shifting gears and we're going to be talking about mythology. We're reading this book, Myths and Legends, which is edited by some guy whose name is under the price sticker on my copy of the book.
How much did you pay for it? Or should I say, how much did I pay for it?
$10.
Oh, nice. Jake Jackson.
Jake Jackson is the editor. And so in this book, it's basically a compendium of all sorts of world mythologies. And so we're going to be going through region by region, starting off with Africa, and then I think we move into Celtic. It's all by alphabetical. So as the podcast progresses, as Season 2 of Unlimited Opinions progresses, we're going to be covering all of the major world mythologies.
If you insist.
Yeah, he mentioned just before we started recording that he doesn't exactly like the book so far. So
well, I don't. It's not that I don't like the book. I don't know. I don't know if I have much to say on the subject.
Really, you have things to say about everything. I think that goes against the.
Yeah, the title of the program is Unlimited Opinions.
Yes.
I'm sure I'll figure out something.
Yes. And just a note, we are recording distantly because I am now in college and he's, of course, back home. So there will be some Zoom audio compression when he is talking. So hopefully I have the good audio on my end, but
should be able to wants to hear what I have to say.
Well, you've made yourself very, very... You're kind of saying that you have nothing to say anyway, so we'll see where it goes. Should we just get right into it?
I guess I have to be careful not to talk over you. Is that where some of our problems are going to be? Like if we talk at the same time, is that going to cause problems? Or
maybe.
Not?
We'll see.
I am ready.
All right. Well, we started off with African myths of creation, death, and the afterlife. And these first four stories we read about were from the Yoruba traditions, which is the Yoruba people of West Africa.
I believe it's pronounced Yoruba.
Is it?
And I'll tell you why I think I know that.
Okay.
When I was in college, I took an African art history class.
That surprises me.
And I took it because I needed an art kind of elective to get my BA, and I thought this would be easy. And of course, I procrastinated, and I waited till the first day of class to buy the books, and they were sold out of the used ones. And so all they had left were new books, which back then were even more expensive than they are now. And so I refused to buy them. and so I learned, and they did it by slides, because it's art, you show the art on the screen or whatever, and they talk about it. And I thought, well, I don't need a book, it's got pictures in it. I really struggled in that class, mainly because I was thinking phonetically.
Really?
About all of it. I knew Yoruba, but I had a completely different spelling of the tribe and the various tribes and the artwork and stuff like that, because all they had were pictures in the classroom, but the test was written. It was the first test was a challenge because I'm like, who is this? It was multiple choice, and I didn't even understand. I had to read them out. Like, oh, Yoruba.
God.
So I did fine in the class ultimately because it was pretty easy, but I'm pretty sure it was Yoruba.
So we start off with the Yoruba creation of the universe. And with that, we have two major gods, Olorun, which is the wisest god and the ruler of the sky, and Olokun, the most powerful god and the ruler of the seas and marshes. We enter into another god, Obatala, who wanted mountains and forests along the earth to make Olokun's domain habitable. And so Obatala goes to Orunmila, who is the son of Olorun, and he tells him to make a gold chain from the sky to the sea, and to carry a shell full of sand, a white hen, a black cat, and a palm nut when he goes down into Olokun's domain.
Of course.
Yes, as you do.
Yes. And every time I go down a gold chain, those are the first things I grab.
They're the essentials.
I'm sure they have some religious or mystical thing in their culture. I'm just ignorant of what they are. Go ahead.
And so Obatala gathers gifts of gold from all the other gods. There's a very wide pantheon of gods in the Yoruba tradition. I think they say that there's several thousand of them that are named. And so he forges a chain, and he dangles above the sea. And so Orunmila tells him to toss down his sand, which creates a mound of land within the waters. Then he tells Obatala to release the hen, which goes down and scatters the sand, which in turn makes all kinds of land, mountains, hills, and valleys. So wherever the sand falls, that's where the land is created.
How big is that chicken?
I do not know. Maybe it took a very long time.
True.
So Obatala names the spot where he landed Ife, and he plants the palm nut, making a tree, and he fashions a house where he lives with the black cat away from all the other gods. And in the Yoruba tradition, that is how the universe was created.
It's I guess, and you of course you'll know more about this than I do because I haven't really.
That is something to mention. Is this season we're kind of more in my wheelhouse. Last season you knew more about philosophy, but I've looked more into mythology than I think you ever have. So this will be interesting.
I'm guessing there's a lot of duality in these creation myths with the kind of like the Christian tradition, God and Satan, and from nothingness comes something, and here we have the duality of the god of the sky and the god of the water, and then some kind of comes down from the god of the sky with some relation to the god of the sky. Is it his son? Is that who it was that came down with the sand and the chicken and the
Orunmila, which is kind of the prophecy god, is the son of Olorun, who is the one who tells Obatala to make the gold chain and to bring the hen and those sorts of things. So he's the son of Olorun, the wisest god.
Wisest. Well, you knew what he was talking about with that chicken.
Yeah, he sure did, and it worked out pretty well. So then we move into the story of how Obatala creates mankind. So Olorun, the wisest god, of course, sends the chameleon Agemo down to the land to see if Obatala succeeded in his mission to make the land. And so Obatala says yes, the land is far more pleasant than it ever was before, but he desires light, as everything down by the waters is just in complete twilight. So Olorun creates the golden orb of the sun for Obatala, and he is very pleased. But after a while, time passes, and he grows restless, and he wants companions. So he fashions figures out of clay in his own image. And after he creates a few of these figures, he gets tired and thirsty, and he drinks some palm wine. And he gets drunk, and then he starts creating the figures very misshapenly on accident. And so, while he is drunk, he calls on Olorun to give life to the figures, and they are made humans. And so then
Remind me of that Toy Story, that kid next door that they tortured. Remember that?
Sid? Sid from Toy Story.
They were so evil to that poor little child. But anyway, it just reminded me of that, like the Island of Misfit Toys across the next door to Sid's backyard.
The Island of Misfit Toys is from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I know, but it was the evil island of Misfit Toys, the sandbox in the backyard, where they're all crawling out. Oh, we're going to get you, kill you.
Yeah, I guess you're not wrong.
And it kind of ruined the guy's life, but he still ended up becoming a productive citizen because in the Toy Stories at 3, he's working a trash truck, and then they freaked him out again.
Yes.
They're just evil.
The toys in Toy Story are evil?
The selfish little bastards.
I guess I can't argue with you there. So Obatala sees the misshapen figures suffer, and he declares that he will never drink palm wine again, and he says he'll be...
Liar.
He says
that's the reason why he brought the palm seed down there, so he can make the wine.
Well, it was to make his house first. I guess you disagree with that.
Well, how long did he wait for those palm trees to grow? I don't know. I'm sure he made the wine before the house.
So he swears he'll be the protector of humans with deformities forever. So the humans build houses in Ife, and they make a city, and Obatala gives them tools and teaches them to farm, and that is how humanity was created. So what do you think about that story as a whole?
Well, what did you think about it?
I thought it was fascinating. I thought it's interesting, especially with the how deformities are created is purely on accident. But then it's also like they're not just completely rejected, as I think you'll see in some other mythologies, where he actually swears that he'll be the protector of humans forever and not just cast them out or condemn them.
Yeah, that is a nice touch. I was not expecting that. I thought he was going to banish them into because they're bad or something. That was nice. I mean, I guess it's kind of funny to me that humans were created because the god was bored.
Yeah,
He wanted
he
something to play with.
just wanted companions. That's something I think you'll see in a lot of other mythologies too. Is they just get lonely or they get tired of whatever other creatures they've created, and then that's kind of where humans come from.
Right.
So
Kind of a weird commentary on humans' view of themselves.
yeah,
In a way, we're kind of created, like the Christian tradition in God's image, but also, I mean, that the story of that creation is, he's in nothingness, so he created this, and he thought it was good, and he created something else. It's kind of similar to this,
hmm
in the theme of kind of just adding on to what the God or gods are creating, and I wonder why that is.
yeah, that is interesting. I don't know actually. I guess we'll read more about it as the book goes along. Look at the other creation stories and see if they do kind of follow that same theme of going from just one thing to the next in terms of creation.
And then it kind of begs the question of whether or not the creation myth is something that we're hardwired to believe,
hmm
or if there's some element of truth that has just come through. That that there is a creator that created us because
hmm
he's kind of bored and wanted to see what could happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why. Wouldn't that be why you would create humans, just to see what would happen if you were God?
I don't know.
Why would you create humans?
I don't know that I would.
Yeah, I think we
I
got
guess,
into this in the last season. Why are we even created at all?
why do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. I think like we looked at it from like the standpoint of God, right?
Right.
Of like I don't know. That's a good question. Because I think
It
some
would,
some of the ideas that we threw out was is to have something productive, and I think you mentioned just for something to praise you, I guess.
yeah, that's a common thought of,
hmm
like the Roman and Greek gods.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm not saying that's what I believe. I'm just, that's the whole. There's the Star Trek episode about that. I just watched the other day. The original Star Trek series
Yes.
where they happen upon, uh, was it Zeus?
Oh, I don't
Or
know. I don't think I've seen that episode.
yeah, where they're on a planet and this humanoid creature summons Kirk down, and it turns out he's like one of the gods, and he needs humans to worship him, and it gives him power and this and that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
I mean, I guess
uh,
that makes sense.
yeah, it's kind of a fascinating sci-fi type story, but um, I get, and that's part of the reason why I think for whatever reason, assuming that God created us, that's why I think that there is the free will, because otherwise it's like for God it would be like watching a metronome,
hmm
tick tock tick,
Yeah.
and even though it'd be super complex, unless God can be surprised by what we've chosen to do, I would think he or she or it or whatever would be completely bored by the experience. It's that,
Here's where we get back to our very long-lasting discussion if God knows the future or not.
yeah, of course he doesn't.
I think he does. Moving on to Olokun's revenge, because not all of the gods are happy that humans exist.
I think if I were God and I knew the future, I would just end it all.
That's bleak.
Well, I mean, you already saw it.
I guess so.
Why, it's over. So do I? I've seen that show. I guess oh, I do like reruns, though. I just watched the old Star Trek again. I've seen that episode like 4 times. So maybe it's like a good Clint Eastwood movie.
Oh my God.
You're like a good Clint Eastwood movie. He wants to see that main character in Unforgiven blow
Yeah,
somebody up with a shotgun.
there you go. So, Obatala retires back up to the golden chain to the sky, and many of the other gods desire to see the world. So Lorun tells the gods that they have a duty to protect humans, and so many travel down and they start to divide the land up for themselves. And Olokun is very unhappy because she sees all the gods claiming what used to be hers, and she begins to flood the entire land. The humans call to Obatala to come help them, but he can't hear them as he's all the way back up in the sky, and so they intend to turn to Eshu, who is another god who came down, to deliver the message that they need help. But Eshu is not exactly very I guess, gracious, and he demands that they give him many sacrifices before going back up to the sky. So Obatala then gets the message, and he consults Orunmila, who uses his divining nuts to see how to control the waters. Orunmila then travels down the golden chain, he causes the waters to recede, and he teaches humans to divine the future, and then returns back up to the sky.
I remember reading somewhere that there's a lot of the common flood of the world stories, like Noah.
Yes.
And the theory is there might have been like a huge, massive flood in that whole region, like with just never-ending deluges for certain periods of time. I wonder if there's some truth to that.
Well, this is actually very far removed from where, the story of Noah would have originated, because I should have mentioned this earlier. We're actually in sub-Saharan Africa.
Right.
So
right.
really
Sub-Saharan West Africa, isn't it?
Yes.
Maybe way over on the other side of Africa from, where we presume Noah would be over on the other side, right?
Over in Mesopotamia, really.
Right.
So there is, evidence for that, because the Epic of Gilgamesh also tells a flood story, which is a Mesopotamian legend. And of course, you mentioned Noah, and various other mythologies also do. So, again, that raises the question, is that just something that we, like telling stories about, or is that something that, actually happened?
What do you think?
I mean, I would say that it's something that actually happened. I don't think, there's a lot of like very vague ideas that we like telling stories about that I think you can argue for, like, virtues or ideals. But I think something like as specific as a global flood means that there would have had to have been some sort of massive flood that would have, inspired those stories, enough to, keep telling those stories for generations and generations.
True. I guess floods are, well, I guess depending on where you're at. I mean, I guess in a desert, they're not, well, they still can be common. They're more like flash floods. But, like in Missouri, even Missouri, where we have a lot of rivers and a lot of rain and all that stuff, there have been massive floods. Of course, we're in a hilly environment, so it's not as devastating. But I guess floods are relative. I guess my point is, after saying for 5 minutes, relatively universal, and they're scary. I mean, the flow and the noise and the strength of moving water, especially when you couldn't communicate or didn't know what was coming. And most people would have been living in valleys because that's the best arable land. So river valleys probably it may just be a common fear and experience that this huge, it's almost like a spirit.
Yeah.
You see just a large, fast moving flow of water. It's like it's alive. So I guess maybe it's just that.
Maybe so.
But the whole catastrophic flood story, it seems like a beyond the normal thing where like everything is going to be killed save the select few, like Noah or the other stories.
Well, what's interesting about the Mesopotamian legend in the Epic of Gilgamesh is it's almost the same premise as Noah too, where it's basically, two people are basically selected to survive the flood. And so it's, that same sort of idea of, that's even more specific. It's not just a flood where, a few people survive, but it is, a couple that have learned how to survive.
Right.
In the Mesopotamian case, I forget the guy's name, but he finds like the fruit of immortality. I think after the flood is like one of the gods' gift to him as, recompense for, flooding everything he knew. So, sorry about that. Sorry about destroying everything here. You can live forever.
So are we going to read about Gilgamesh later? I didn't even look at the table.
I don't think so. I don't think we will.
What? I'm so disappointed.
I know. I know you were looking forward to Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is your favorite.
Yeah, I don't see it in here. There are Scottish ones, though.
There are Scottish.
Hope it involves a leprechaun.
Which are different from Celtic, which I did not know. And then we move on to the story of how Agemo outwits Olokun. So Olokun was still very angry, even angrier now that her waters have been forced back down, and she wants to completely usurp Olorun. So she challenges him to a weaving contest because she is the most skilled weaver in the universe. And so Olorun, trying to outwit her, sends down Agemo the chameleon to ask Olokun for a sample of her cloth. And so Olokun goes back into where she has her weaving, and she puts on a dress and displays a color. And Agemo, of course, being a chameleon, perfectly matches that color. And so she keeps going back and trying on new dresses that are continuously more impressive. and Agemo keeps basically displaying that exact color. And so she thinks to herself that if one of Olorun's servants is this skilled, then she has no chance, of besting Olorun in this contest. And so she basically concedes, and Olorun and Olokun restore their friendship, and they bring peace to all the lands.
So he bluffed her, really.
Yes.
He was going to lose that contest.
Absolutely.
Do you notice, and I think we're going to notice this, and maybe I'm just guessing, but a lot of times it's the female spirit or god that is kind of like the devious or the angry one or the bad one or something.
And that's something that carries through for, hundreds and hundreds of years, really. We see that again in, the tales of King Arthur, with Morgan Le Fay as the primary antagonist, and even up to like the earliest novels. I kind of learned about this in English high school class last year. There's up until a certain point, there were really only a few roles that females would really fill. They were either like the damsel in distress or like the temptress, the witch, basically, which is interesting.
I guess we'll leave that for another day.
Yes, I guess so.
We're in dangerous territory. You're on campus. You better watch what you say.
I'm going to get canceled if I haven't been already. So then we move on to the gods descend from the sky, and now we're looking at a different African people, another West African people, the Dahomean people. And this story was very interesting to me because this is what really interests me about mythology, and I think this is where we can kind of get into the most discussion, is because this is really sort of a list of the primary gods. And so when we look at like the lists of the major gods of a group of people, you kind of really get a sense of what things they really value, what's most important to them to make them their chief gods. And so we start off with Nana Baluku, who is the mother of all creation, and she is the mother of Mawu Lisa. Mawu Lisa basically has two faces on one body. There is Mawu, who is a woman's face, and her eyes are the moon, and she controls the night and all the lands to the west. And there is Lisa, which is the male face, and his eyes are the sun, and he controls daylight and the east. And so Mawu Lisa has 7 offspring, Dazoji and Nyohwe Ananu, not 7 children, but she had 7 sets of children. So these first 2 are twins, Dazoji and Nawe Nanu, and they are given the earth, and they speak the earth language. And there's Sogbo, who is a combined male and female, who is given the sky and controls thunder and lightning. Then Agbe and Naete were given waters and the creatures of the deep. And Age lives in the wild, and he controls all the birds and the beasts, and he's a skilled hunter. There is Gu, who is very, very interesting, because his torso is made of stone, and he has a giant sword sticking out of his neck instead of a head. And he was given the forests and fertile soil, and he created the tools needed to cultivate the land. Then there is Jo, who is not made of flesh, but of atmosphere, and he was given the space between heaven and earth, and he was entrusted with the lifespan of humans, and he clothed the gods, basically making them invisible to humans, and he was given human language. And then last, there was Legba, who was Mawu Lisa's favorite, and he reports on the progress of all the other siblings, and he speaks all their languages, because each set of gods has their own language, and they cannot understand each other. And Legba is everywhere, and you must approach him before prayer to have any of your prayers answered, because he's the only one who can communicate with all the gods.
So tell me what the point of, I actually have in the margin, question mark, what is the point? I mean, you have all these gods, so maybe you can tell me what we can draw from all these different gods and the sword face guy and all that stuff.
So what I think we can kind of draw is what they kind of really felt about, the importance of each of these kind of natural aspects. So we have a set of twins for the earth, and they're given the earth language, of course, which, I don't really know what the significance of twins is in mythology, but I don't really know where I'm going with that one.
I don't know. I mean, I guess you said you were interested in it because you thought it was important what gods they had in their stories.
Mm-hmm. And I think really,
why do you think that? Why is that interesting to you?
I think the biggest, most important god here is Legba, and I think it's very interesting to these people that the god of language basically is the most important. If you want to get anything done, it has to be through language, which has been kind of one of my philosophies for a long time. If you've listened to season 1. And so I thought it was very interesting that these people, valued language so heavily, kind of as opposed to the Yoruba people, whose wisest god was the air and whose most powerful god was the water. So it's less of like an assignment of, I guess, physical things to give power or wisdom, because it is fairly common for, the air to be the wisest and the water to be the most powerful. So I thought it was very interesting that the god who actually gets things done isn't really attributed to a natural thing, but just to language.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that is different. It's interesting.
It's very,
Well,
very
and also kind of mimics the thought that Jesus is the Word. The Spirit is the Word. So, I mean, that's my reference to everything. It's gonna.
Yes, it's going to be Catholicism. I'm gathering.
Catholicism and Christianity is going to be my core reference to all these other myths. But
it is also interesting to mention Joe, who does not have like a flesh form, but he's just purely made of atmosphere, and how he's equated with life. Because I think that's kind of a thing you see in like a lot of the Greek philosophers, almost, with sort of that, fifth element of like spirit or soul kind of being this, limbo between things, and like the conjoining, matter of things, essentially. So that was an interesting thing, I thought.
Yeah, agreed.
Then we move on to God abandons the earth. And now we're looking at the people of Ghana in West Africa.
Yeah, I was entertained by this story.
I bet you were. So in this story, we have basically a singular major god. And so he created all of humanity, and he made the sky and the earth close enough for the people on earth to touch the sky. And he built a house directly over the people's heads. And so then he started to get very frustrated, because children began to wipe their hands on the sky, and women would tear pieces of sky out to throw in their cooking pots. And so one night, as God was sleeping, a woman was pounding corn with a big mortar and pestle. And so as she knocked her pestle against the sky, there's a very loud pounding, and God woke up and came down to scold her. But as he was coming down, she hit him in the eye with her pestle. And so God flung the sky away from the earth, and then the woman tried to make up for her failure, and she began to stack mortars to try to reach up to the sky. They were one short, and so she had the brilliant idea of taking the bottom one out and putting it on top to make the final reach there. And of course, when she took the bottom one out, everything fell, and so God remains up in the sky to this day and will not come back down.
She was a big fan of Looney Tunes cartoons. Trying to use one block on top of the other and then switch out the bottom block to the top one, and it all fell down.
So why'd you like this story so much?
Well, I was just imagining the gods saying, "Woman, why you wake me up in the middle of the night? Why you messing with your thistle? I'm trying to get a nap here."
That is exactly what happened.
And then she tries to do her Looney Tunes thing where she climbs up, up into the sky, and then it crashes down. And
Yes.
I thought it was just absurd. I'm not sure the point is.
I'm not really sure what the point is either. I guess it's a lesson about how you can't stack things if you take the bottom thing out. Which is a very valuable lesson to know.
Or it might just be, God's up in the heavens and away from us because, well, in this particular case, one particular person annoyed him so much he moved away.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe the lesson would be, God is not always happy with us.
Mm-hmm.
The creator, or whoever you want to call
And
him.
that's kind of a theme in a lot of stories, basically just trying to explain why things are the way they are, especially in this next story, The Coming of Darkness, which is from the Kono people of the Sierra Leone. And so when God first made the world, there was just absolutely no darkness. And so he looked to the bat, and he gave the bat a parcel containing darkness to take to the moon. And so the bat really didn't understand the importance of his mission, so he sat down and he took a nap. And while he was sleeping, some mischievous animals came up and opened the box, releasing darkness into the world. So he was very afraid of God's wrath, so the bat flew around wildly, trying to contain the darkness, but he could not do it. But to this day, when you see bats flying around, they fly erratically and wildly, and that is because they are trying to contain the darkness. Do you think this is a true story?
It seems a little oddly specific.
I'm guessing it started because somebody asked why bats fly like that, and somebody thought of a story.
So it sounds like something ridiculous like I would tell you when you were 5.
Yeah, it sounds like it'd be in Mark Bishop's Book of Knowledge. And now it is, I guess. This is the audiobook of Mark Bishop's Book of Knowledge, so it made its way in.
That's not my knowledge.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's a commentary on somebody else's knowledge.
I'm merely a critic,
I know. I know you are.
not a creator anymore.
How unfortunate. So then we move into the story of the sun and the moon from the Karachi people of West Africa. So the sun and the moon got married, and they created the star children. But eventually the moon got bored of the sun, and she took a lover. And the sun was not very happy about that, so he kicked her out, and he started dividing their possessions equally among them after their split. So the moon did not really fully appreciate his kindness, so she sent her star children to fight his star children, creating the thunder and the lightning. And to this day, the moon still tries to steal from the sun, and she tries to steal from his fields. And so when the moon is caught stealing from the sun, he chases her, which causes an eclipse. And so whenever an eclipse happens, all the people must bang on drums and threaten the sun so that we don't lose the moon forever. Did you do that when we saw the eclipse, what, about 4 years ago?
Yeah, but I did it naked. It's coming back. There's gonna be another full eclipse on this region pretty soon. A couple of years, I think.
Really?
Yeah, it's just cycling back through on a different path.
We have to make sure to get our drums out and threaten the sun.
I will not get naked this time.
Oh, well, I don't know why I'm disappointed in that. I should.
Condition of my parole.
How unfortunate for you.
I'm just joking. They never caught me.
Oh my God. Great first episode.
I'm trying to do my best.
So we move into another story from the Karachi people, now how death first entered the world. So there was a famine going on, and a young man goes out into the wilderness to look for food. And he sees a large form lying on the ground, and as he approaches, he notices it is the giant Oro, and who is Owuo, who is also known as Death, and he has flowing white hair that stretches from the location of Karachi to Salaga. And so Owuo offers the man food in exchange for service, and the man agrees, and he eats some of the best meat he has ever tasted.
This is really a disturbing story.
Yes, this is very dark. So he lives with Owuo for a while, and becomes homesick, and Owuo lets him return on one condition. He must send a replacement to take his place working for Owuo. So he agrees, and he goes back home, and he sends his brother. And so after a while, he spends some time back at home, and he gets really hungry for that meat that he tasted. So he goes back to Owuo, and he stays with him for a while again and eats his meat, but he notices his brother is mysteriously absent. But he doesn't think too much of it, and after a while he gets homesick again, goes back home, but this time Owuo says he needs a female replacement. So the young man goes back home and tells his sister and her slave to go to Owuo, and she does, and after a while, again, he gets hungry for more meat and goes back, and this time Owuo's kind of unhappy that he's back here, but he says, go ahead, eat some more of the meat. And so as he's eating, he realizes he's eating his sister's thigh. So, of course, he's understandably freaked out, and he runs back to the village to tell them what happened. And so they go to Salaga, which is where the end of the giant's hair is at, and they light Owuo's hair on fire, which burns all the way back to his cave where he lives, killing him. And so, as he lies dead, the young man notices that there's some medicine on Owuo's body, so he takes the medicine and he pours it over the bones of his sister and the slave and the brother, which miraculously brings them back to life. And so the young man then feels kind of bad that they killed Owuo, so he pours some medicine on his eye. So it doesn't restore him to health completely, but it makes his eye open. But now, every time that he blinks or winks, a person dies. And so he's constantly blinking and winking, trying to get the dust out of his eye, and that is why people die to this day.
There's two holes in the story that bother me.
Really? There are holes in these ancient mythological stories.
The first unexplained thing is where the first meat came from. We know when he substituted out his brother that he's chewing on his brother when he goes back. Who was he eating when he first got there? And then, secondly, why did they feel bad for this dude and reawaken his eye? I mean, what's to feel bad about? The guy deserved to die.
Yeah, I don't really know. I think it's the young man just felt bad because I guess Owuo had provided for him for a while, maybe, and so he's like, might as well try to do something for him. And I guess it kind of glosses over the fact that he was making him eat his siblings.
Right, well, he didn't make him; he tricked him.
Yes, that's true.
So, I mean, the young man could have cooked his brother and sister on his own. He didn't need the god of whatever creepiness to do it for him. But
What this kind of sounds like to me is kind of the blending of two different stories, and that's something that happens a lot too in a lot of mythological stories. I think there's some sort of separation. Owuwo was probably a character in two separate stories, and these stories were kind of meshed together. There was a story maybe where Owuwo was a more heroic figure or a more tragic figure, and that's why he's brought back to life in the end. And then there's the other story where Owuwo is just a terrible person who makes people eat their own siblings for fun.
Right.
So that's what it sounds like to me. I'm no expert, of course, but
that's a good point.
yes.
It's kind of like a weird Hansel and Gretel thing.
Yes, it very much is. Moving on to the last story in this section, Wanjiro, sacrificed by her family. This is from the Kakiro people of Kenya. So during a drought, a village went to their witch doctor to ask what to do. And so this witch doctor tells them that this girl, Wanjiro, must be sacrificed, and everyone must give her parents a goat as payment in order for her life to be spared, or to be not spared, to be ended. So he orders the crowd to circle around Wanjiro, and she begins to just sink into the ground, and the ground rises up, to her feet and to her knees and up through her body. And her parents are understandably freaking out, and they try to push their way into her, but the crowd just keeps pushing them back and handing them their goats. And so as Wanjiro sinks, rain falls, and she is lost beneath the earth. And so after some weeks, the drought has ended, thankfully. But a suitor, a man who was in love with Wanjiro, is very upset, and he cries for her, and he goes to the spot where she sank into the ground, and he too sinks below. And as he goes down below, he's now on a road underneath the ground, and he sees a tattered and dirty Wanjiro in front of him. And so he carries her back up to the surface, but he doesn't tell anybody except his family that she has returned, and she stays with him for a while. And then as harvest comes, there's a big celebration because they finally have food, and to everybody's surprise, he miraculously displays a living and well Wanjiro at the festivities, and her parents are overjoyed and asked to have her back. But this young man does not give her back because they kind of sold her shamefully for these goats. And so after some time, her parents really do just cry for her, and he realizes that they did love her. And so he asks to marry her and pays them a dowry, a wedding price, and he marries Wanjiro.
They lived happily ever after. You skipped over that he, on his search for her, he searched far and wide, and he was a failure. And then he began to cry and weep at the spot where she left. And those tears allowed him to transition into whatever realm that she came to.
Very sorry. That was a very important point.
I think it was. Are you mocking me?
No, that was not mockery. That was just me being serious. That was an important point.
His tears allowed him to rescue his love. Mm-hmm. The theme of water and redemption and all that kind of stuff.
I thought you were going to point out a plot hole in that one.
Not really. I mean, I like that he beat off her relatives for a while until they made amends.
Well, I thought you were going to say that of course they loved her. They were very upset, and they were trying to force their way into the circle to save Wanjiro.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess that'd be all right, but there's no mention of them trying to murder their neighbors to save their daughter, which would have been my preferred attempt. But
you wouldn't just accept the goats?
No, I would not accept goats in lieu of children.
No, that's unfortunate.
Oh, I guess when you're, that's why we have the Second Amendment. Your neighbors come over and say, "Give us your kid because we got a drought." You can hold them at bay.
That's an excellent point. I don't know why I didn't think of that. I'm sure that's what the framers had in mind. They had a bunch of circumstances where people tried to buy their children for goats.
Yeah, to make it rain so they sink into the mud.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we need a 30 bullet capacity magazine.
To fight off our neighborhood witch doctors.
That's right.
That's a great point. I don't know why I didn't think of that sooner.
It's a very important constitutional law.
Mm-hmm.
Killing your neighbors to fend them off, and from human sacrifice during a drought.
Yes, it's very, very strange that we have that oddly specific law, but it's very useful. It comes up very often. So, what do you think of this reading section as a whole?
I never knew any of it.
Neither did I.
It was interesting reading. It's well written.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know that I'm better for it for reading it and knowing it, but I don't know.
I think these stories of creation and those sorts of things tend to be more random, I guess, in world mythologies than if we get into the later stories. I think we'll find more of a moral, especially if we get into more heroic journeys and, what this person's doing to save this person and that sort of thing. So I think there'll be more morality and more philosophical thought, I think, going into this in the future.
I look forward to that because some of this did seem random, like all
Hmm.
those different gods and what they did and what realms they controlled.
And a lot of it is kind of random because, these pantheons are built over time and these stories are made over time and different people add in what, basically what they want to see, what they think is important in a god. And I think that's, a lot of what the draw is in mythology. I kind of mentioned this earlier is, it's very much kind of a sum total of what a group of people values, really. And I think that's very interesting to look at.
Yeah, kind of a common wisdom,
Hmm.
moral structure to kind of make meaning of. And especially, it wasn't too long ago that life was really short.
Hmm.
Life expectancy, if you're lucky, you get to 30. It was brutal. It was
Hmm.
tough, famine and all that kind of stuff. And you just struggled to survive.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So these stories were useful to try to give some meaning to that really depressing and difficult struggle that is life.
Yes, I agree. It's
Yeah.
kind of like a generalized community philosophy, really.
Yeah.
We're not looking at specific philosophers, but now we're looking at a community that's built over years of what they really value.
Yep. No, it's good, and I think you're right. I think it'll be more compelling to
Hmm.
me personally when we get to more morality tales, that kind
Hmm.
of stuff.
Yeah. And this
I
is
mean,
a very, very strange format, as far as I'm aware, for a mythology podcast to be this free form, so opinionated. I think most other mythology podcasts out there are very much just the retelling of the stories. So I think we'll fit a very bizarre niche. I don't know if anybody will be interested in this, but it will be out there.
I think our listener will follow us to the ends of the earth.
We've actually, this is a good time to mention, we actually have hit more downloads really than ever before in the last few weeks.
Really?
We hit 100 downloads within a month for the first time ever. So within 30 days, we got 100 downloads. So that's the first time that's happened.
All right, we're good. We're slowly climbing.
We are actually. September's looking to be probably our best month. I think we dipped down a little bit because there wasn't an episode last week, but now we're back with season 2. I think we'll start drawing a different crowd from the philosophy people. I don't know if you can call it a crowd, but there are a select number of people who listen to these. So whoever's still listening now, I'm sure they're entertained in some fashion.
One does not a crowd make.
But we have more than one. Like, that's important to say. There is more than one person listening to these.
Well, I'll reiterate that as at the beginning of now season 2,
Mm-hmm.
that the last thing I want are a lot of people listening to this.
Yes, that's been your philosophy this whole time, is the less people that listen to my public internet broadcasted podcast, the better.
That is correct, and not for me. I think even if and you never say anything controversial or bad or anything like that. But I think even being associated with somebody can be dangerous in the modern era. The last
Yes, that's
couple of
true.
years, and I think it's getting worse until we change it.
Just wait
In
till
the
we
near-
start getting guests on here.
Yeah, that should be interesting.
Is
I
that a
don't know
thing that
who
you
would
want to
wanna-
do?
Yeah, maybe season 3.
Season 3 with guests.
Or if I mean with season 2 with mythology is so specific,
Mhm.
I think it'd be interesting if anybody has anything to add with regard to mythology or if interest of the subject. That'd be great. I mean, I don't know if
Sure. I didn't even think that was a thing that you'd even want to consider. So all of our listener out there, if you're interested in guests coming on the podcast, that might be a thing in the future.
have we had any Twitter tweets that anybody win the T-shirt?
We had somebody reply to a tweet, but they have their Twitter account set up so that I cannot see what they said.
How can that be?
So like their tweets aren't public to anybody except who follows them. So I get the little bubble, like the number 1 next to the reply thing, but I can't actually see who it is because their account is private.
Fascinating. I would think that if you commented on somebody else's deal, that the person you're commenting on would see it.
I don't know, maybe it's just something weird, but yeah, I couldn't see who it was. But if you are out there and you replied or retweeted or something, one of our tweets, I don't know, tweet us again, send us a DM, or send me a DM. He has nothing to do with the Twitter. And we'll see about finally designing a t-shirt as well, because we still have not designed a t-shirt. It's season 2. We have no t-shirt. We keep promising a t-shirt.
I bought a new favorite t-shirt
Did you?
this week. And it has like a picture of a Greek statue, a profile, like a guy that looks like a Greek god or something, or a Greek philosopher. And above him it says, "Meh, good enough." And then the quote is from Mediocrities.
Oh my God. I think I've seen that exact t-shirt at Walmart.
Oh, it just makes me laugh every time I look at it.
Yeah, I bet it does. That sounds right up your alley.
I wore it, and then I immediately washed it and wore it the next day.
Oh my God. We'll have to come up with a stupid pun like that for our t-shirt.
I don't know. Yeah, well, as soon as somebody comments on our Twitter thing, we'll send them a free T-shirt.
Yeah, that's still a promise. Still going to be going probably until, I don't know, season 25 before somebody actually publicly replies to one of our tweets.
Who knows?
Right.
But if we do send them a T-shirt, then we have to immediately block them, just out of spite.
That shows you for interacting with us. Get out of here.
You weirdo.
You listen to us? All right, well, this has been episode 1 of season 2 of Unlimited Opinions. I've been Adam Bishop.
Still Mark Bishop.
You said that very angrily.
Arrgh.
Oh, don't.
I'm disappointed.
You're disappointed in what?
I'm still me.
Oh, how unfortunate. Still begging your drum naked at the eclipse.
I've started learning the guitar.
Again.
Yes. Well, this time I'm doing it. I don't know if you want to give this in the podcast, but I'm doing it using an app, Fender Play app, and it's actually pretty neat because there's little snippet classes, little couple-minute instructional things. So I'm doing that now.
Interesting. Well, that'll go in the end cap, I guess, of the podcast. So.
Oh yeah, we can turn it off if you want.
If you've listened this far, he is learning how to play guitar.
Not well.
Not well. Yeah, that's kind of figures.
I don't have any rhythm, and my fingers don't work well.
Well, those are kind of the 2 necessary things for guitar.
I figure practice makes perfect.
We'll see.
Well, I was telling Eli last night. He says, "Oh, because I came up after clawing on the guitar, and he says, "Oh, how'd it go?" And I said, "Well, on average, statistically, my life expectancy, I think it was like 78, 79. So I might be able to learn by the time I die."
Very uplifting.
That's my goal, is to be able to play some songs by the time I die.
It's a good goal.
It's going to be close.